Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the Coastal Observing in Your Community webinar series hosted by SECOORA. We are hosting this webinar series to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. The point is to discuss and highlight coastal ocean observing in the Southeast U.S. Monthly invited speakers will discuss ocean observing topics. Each webinar will be 60 minutes and recorded and archived for future viewing. My name is Abby Wakely, SECOORA's Communications Specialist, and I will be facilitating and moderating the webinar today. All participants will be in listen-only mode. You can type questions for the presenter or technical questions in the bottom left-hand chat box. I will respond to them directly or post the questions to our presenter after their webinar. We are recording, once again, we are recording this webinar today, and we'll be posting the recording along with the PDF of the presentation on the SECOORA website, and that is www.secoora.org/webinar-series. We are very, very excited to welcome Jennifer Dorton from SECOORA and Charlton Galvarino from Second Creek Consulting as our speakers today. They'll be presenting on the SECOORA Marine Weather Portal. Jennifer Dorton is SECOORA's Regional Coastal Ocean Observing System Manager. Jennifer is responsible for overseeing the development of SECOORA's updated Regional Observing Plan, managing data management and communications, coordinating SECOORA's principal investigators, and growing our observing system. Jennifer has over 13 years of experience leading grant-funded projects and programs at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. She has served as a PI on the SECOORA-funded UNCW Coastal Ocean Research and Monitoring Program, and as the lead PI in the Marine Weather Portal Web Development Project. Charlton Galvarino has been in the data management and software product development business as a contractor for over 12 years. Clients range from private sector oceanography companies providing critical oil and gas ocean current forecasts to clients that are municipalities managing snowplow routes during severe weather. Charlton has an open-minded source attitude who believes in the best fit approach to technology. Find the right tool for the job and run with it. Jennifer and Charlton, thank you so much for joining us today. And Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the controls over and let me know if you have any trouble.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? Oh,
yes.
We're hoping so. Abby, can you see it?
Yes.
I forgot you're all on mute. One thing I will say is I do have slides to go through. However, we will go to a portal demo. And when we go to that live demo of the website, I did ask Abby to unmute folks because I think we would like to have a bit more conversation because as you'll see, we've been making changes to this site, and it's always great to get feedback on what we're doing. And so we would like to encourage more of a conversation as opposed to everybody having to type all their questions at the end. So if you do have questions as I go through the PowerPoint, feel free to type those in, and we will get to those before we go to the demo. But first off, I would like to thank Charlton Galvarino and Dwayne Porter. I think Dwayne is also on the call. The three of us have been touting the Marine Weather Portal for years, and a lot of you from the Weather Service, if you're on the call, have heard from Dwayne and Charlton and I a lot since approximately 2005, especially the Wilmington Weather Service office. But this project really began, this whole Marine Weather Portal development effort really began around 2005. At that point, for folks that are knowledgeable of NOAA, NOAA had started investing in ocean observing system programs through the NOAA COX, the Coastal Ocean Technology Service. And UNCW and the University of South Carolina both received funding through that NOAA effort, and our goal was to put more observations offshore. And that way we could conduct better research and learn more about our coastal environment. Well, Dwayne and Charlton and I and some other folks at the University of South Carolina's Data Management Shop realized that these moorings were a big asset for the community, and we really wanted to figure out how do we reach the broader public. And Dwayne does wear two hats. He works with the University of South Carolina and was involved with their ocean observing program, but he also works with NOAA and NEARS. And for those that don't know, the NEARS and the National Estuarine Research Reserve, and they have stations up and down the coastline. So we started working through this internally and thought, well, you know, it seems like a good partner would be the Weather Service offices. because they already reach out to a lot of the boating and fishing and marine communities. So we approached the North Carolina offices, specifically the Wilmington Weather Forecast Office, and some interaction with Morehead City's Weather Service office, and we said, how do we get this to you? Well, I think it was Steve Paff from Wilmington, said, all of our websites, they're all like put together by the office. They're all different. Some are text products. Some people do have some graphical data. I think the National Digital Forecast Database was just coming online, and folks are trying to figure out how we get that to people. So we have this little pilot project called Carolina's Coast, and there's a photo of it here on this slide. And we broke down North Carolina and South Carolina into 3 boxes, and the user could go in and click on the box of interest, and then they could drill in and get all this data that's now available not only through the National Data Buoy Center, but also through the university-based programs, NOAA NEARS, and the co-op site. So we use this as a way to do data aggregation in a website to allow users access to all this data in one shot. And we also included the forecast and the hazards. And if you notice right above the map, you'll see something that said the text says observations, hazards, forecast, and station list. All of those are tabs. So as you can tell, technology's come a long way since this was originally done, but the user would have to switch or toggle between tabs to get the information they were looking for. So this was sort of a beta project that really led us down the path to the original Marine Weather Portal development. And this occurred in 2007 to 10. And this is when we had the not the eastern region, I just realized there's a typo there, but the eastern region and southern region headquarters, as well as NWS offices in Newport, Morehead City, Wilmington, Charleston, Key West, Corpus Christi, and Brownsville all participated in development efforts. And we were working really hard. For those that, I don't want to get into all the history here, but this portal was developed through NOAA IU's funding, and the goal was to hand this off to the Weather Service. You can see it's inside that Weather Service frame. Everything about it was built based on Weather Service technology and how the Weather Service operate their website. Unfortunately, the site wasn't ever handed off just due to internal, I guess there was some internal issues just regionally across the entire U.S. about how this would work if certain regions had sort of this consolidated look and others didn't. Therefore, SECOORA has been serving this site since approximately 2010, and the Weather Service offices just link to it. So a lot of the offices basically can link into their zone within this, and they just provide this for their users. And it's the same thing as that original Carolina's Coast. We wanted to provide all those observations, plus your forecast and your hazards, all in one nice one-stop shop. And we realized in 2016 that our weather portal was looking very dated. So we said, well, let's talk to SECOORA. They're the ones hosting the site, and they definitely handle all the traffic. Let's see what we can do to make this better and make the site a little more flexible and useful. And so we started reaching out to the Weather Service offices again in 2016 and telling them what we were doing. And everybody seemed really encouraged. I know we've talked to folks around the Southeast and in the Gulf of Mexico. And Tampa gave us a ton of great feedback. We did a site visit down there, Charlton and I did, and they gave us a lot of feedback. And I'm going to show you some of the products that they requested that we pull in. Most of them are hazards products, and there'll be a couple slides. Since we don't have an active hurricane, it's kind of hard to tell you what we were doing, so I do have some slides to show that. So the goals of this are to provide 24/7 access to critical marine weather information, and to make NOAA and other provided data more widely accessible. And then each WFO can link to the Marine Weather Portal, and it'll be automatically focused on their marine area. Charlton is the tech guru, and he can definitely work with you on how to do that. So one thing I didn't do was provide emails, but hopefully we can follow up with everybody if you don't already have Charlton and I's email address, and make sure you have that. So on the back end side of this, you can see on the right-hand side we've got just the map drilled into just south of the Myrtle Beach area, Long Bay, South Carolina area, and one of the near stations is actually selected. And you can see that we are aggregating data not only from National Data Buoy Center and the Weather Service, but for the Estuarine Research Reserves and through IU's regional associations. Web services are actually provided by NOAA NowCoast. NowCoast is really becoming an internal NOAA site for handling forecasts, hazards, hurricane threats and impacts. We're relying on them to be the one place we get data from. Because while we like to provide data from all these sources, it gets very unwieldy if Charlton has to write scripts to go to the National Data Buoy Center to pull in data, to go to the Weather Service and pull in data, to go to the individual NERs and pull in data and the IUs associations, and then also different scripts for forecasts and hazards and everything else. So we're really focusing our efforts on working with the NOAA NowCoast folks. We've had a couple glitches that were found out. I think, Charlton, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was during Hurricane Harvey and a couple times during Irma. And Charlton worked really closely with the NowCoast folks, alerting them to problems that they had, and I think they ended up making quite a few changes in how they served data based on feedback they were getting from him. We also provide web services from SECOORA. They're providing our sea surface temperature map that is shown on the portal. Charlton, do you want to chime in here?
I think you pretty much said it. Definitely this past storm season was a baptism of fire. The good news is that by relying on NowCoast, we don't have to harvest the watches, warnings, and advisory texts that come across the wire. So NowCoast takes care of all that. But when NowCoast has an issue, it percolates up to us, and we have an issue. But as Jen said, those guys were really on top of their game and beefed up their resources so that they would look good and that we would look good.
So if you are looking for the new version of the Marine Weather Portal, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand side there's the new website for it, mwp.secoora.org. And I have threw a photo up here to show just how crazy things were during Irma. But this is just one example. We did a ton of screen grabs during Irma and Jose offshore with Maria and then Harvey before that. So we've got lots of great examples of how this website was able to handle those storms. So, for example, we were able to pull in the NWS long duration watches and warnings, the short duration watches and warnings, and then you can also, below each map, where it's color-coded, you can specifically click on the text and you can access that hazard-specific text forecast. You can also go in and click in the zone and learn more about what's happening in that zone and also access those text forecasts. So you can do it via the map or you can come in under the map and do it. And actually today we can do this on the live demo, but this one was just pretty impressive, just the number of long-term and short-term watches and warnings that were going on ahead of Irma. And we also have radar imagery that we're pulling over so folks can toggle on the radar. And then, as I said earlier, we are doing sea surface temperature data. I know we have a lot of the fishing community that really wants that sea surface temperature data. So that's one product that we always will pull in. We've also been looking for, Charlton, help me, we were also looking for some other, another data product to pull in. Was it satellite wind data?
Wind, you got it.
Yeah, so we are looking for a good location to pull in satellite-derived wind data across the ocean. If anyone has access to that or has a product that they find to be really stable and provide data that's easy, or find wind data that's easy to see for the user to view and actually understand what it means, because I do know that we have some products that are a little confusing for people. We would love to hear from you all. So maybe when we go out to the time when everybody's unmuted, we can bring that back up. We do have tracks for tropical cyclones. Again, we have Irma and Jose that are seen here. And this is all coming from the National Hurricane Center. So we've also, I left them off our list of areas where we are groups that we pull data from, but the Hurricane Center is another location that we are getting a lot of data during these events. When we were in Tampa, the folks at the Tampa office alerted us, and I think that was Daniel Noah, was alerting us to these new active hurricane threats and impact layers. And, you know, he really felt that that would be a good addition to have on this site. And at first we were a little bit skeptical because we weren't certain exactly how far and wide these had been implemented, but we're game for trying it. So we were able to actually bring this layer in during Irma, or Charlton got it in linked prior to Irma, so then when Irma came through, we were able to pull up the threats and impacts as well as the storm track so that people could look at potential threats for their area and then, as we say, follow their emergency and evacuation plans. The other product that they alerted us to was the potential storm surge flooding. And so we also brought this product in as well during this hurricane season. So pictured here, we've got Irma with the threats and impacts layer again as it's changed. All the watches and warnings are listed below. All the buoys and coastal stations, water level stations, everything are here, so folks can easily go in, click on a mooring, find out what the conditions are in their area, view that against the hurricane tracks. With the water level stations, they can look at the threats and impacts. They can also see the water level data as well, predicted and what's occurring. So it's a great spot for people to really not only just be able to, if you're an offshore mariner being interested in what's happening, can you get offshore, but it's also become a great tool to use to visualize and see what's happening with hurricanes and other tropical systems as they're making landfall. So this was just a great shot of one of the NDDC stations that is sitting right next to that little 3 symbol next to Irma, I think. And no, is this Irma? Man, I've lost it. I think this actually might be Harvey. Sorry. And you can see that when the user clicks on the data, you get all the information from the buoy. You see what the hazards are, and you can also see the wind speed. It's graphed over, I think, roughly a 24 to 36-hour period, so you can see the wind speed and gust gradually increasing. So this is just a great, view of how folks can drill down to the buoy level data and still manage to be able to turn on and see these hurricane threats over on the right corner, upper left-hand corner. They can toggle on the different type of overlays that they want to put on the map that they're viewing with that buoy data. You notice bathymetry and zones are up there, radar imagery and sea surface temperature. So they can actually conceivably turn all that on and never have a clue what they're looking at, but all that data is available to view while also looking at point source data. So that ends the slideshow. So we just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the background and then what is available on the site. As I said, without having a hurricane, it was really hard to show that threats and impacts layer and the storm surge layer. So here is the site itself. So Abby, if you don't mind, I think maybe we go ahead and unmute everybody.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Great. Hi, everybody. I think now we can probably go in and maybe have more of a conversation and get some feedback from you all. But this map works like most Google Maps. You can drill down either with the plus or by double-clicking. You notice one of the items that we have on here, these are not moorings. These are well-known marine locations. So we've worked with Weather Service, the WFOs, to get well-known marine locations for the area. And we put these on here so that if a boater or mariner is like, well, I want to go, I'm going to be fishing out towards the ledge, they can click on here, they can hit the NWS forecast, and they can be taken out to that point-and-click forecast for that area. So we have, sorry, I'm trying to move my mouse. We've worked with TAMP to get these well-known marine locations over here on the west coast of Florida. We do need to work with folks throughout the Gulf region, though, because we do have a big gap here in well-known marine locations that we do need to fill. So we're hoping to reach out to the Weather Service office along the Gulf Coast that cover Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and try to get more information from them so we can make certain that we're getting those locations on this site. Let me refer to here. So one of the other things we did was not only just provide the data that a mooring or a platform provides, but we went ahead and did some graphs for this so people can trend the data if they would like to. You scroll below the graph, you get the forecast for that area. And it's all west and all Jeff whenever you're doing them from your house. I have a cat trying to get involved in this one, so hopefully she won't start meowing. Sorry about that, folks. So does anybody have any questions on what you've seen so far? Or any comments? Okay, hearing none. One of the other key pieces of information that we did get from some of our folks was they like kind of the but sometimes it really got in the way of what you're viewing. And so based on feedback from a couple of the weather service offices, we went in and used SASE data and the weather service zones, so your 0 to 20 zone and 20 to 40 zone, and put that in one layer that the user can toggle on or off, totally based on whether on their preference. The other issue is that folks, a lot of times people have their favorite buoy. They know exactly what buoy they want to go to, and they know what they want to see it from. So we do have a drop-down menu, so if you just want to go hit your mooring, you can, and you can see the most recent data from that, and the map automatically takes you to the mooring location. Charlton, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments. So if you go back, why don't you find one of the buoys that's in the middle of a hazard somewhere, either in the Gulf of Mexico there or on the East Coast, preferably one closer to shore.
That's a water level station.
That's good enough. So a couple of things. We designed this thing to be bookmarkable so that if a person were always interested in this particular mooring, they could bookmark this and then be taken directly back to it. And that's why we put the hazards in context. So you see it on the map, but you also have a link right there on the first row there that takes you back out to the Weather Service so you can read the full text there. And if you scrolled all the way down on that page, you'd see the forecast again. Right. So that, too, was also available, I believe, from the Weather Service page. But we're simply putting it right here so you don't have to go anywhere to find out that same information. The other thing that we're doing is we are filtering the warnings that appear. Some of them sneak through, and you'll see that on, the inside of the United States. But we're really trying to focus only on marine-based warnings, watches, and advisories. And you can click those hazards on or off using that tiny little toggle below the map there. There you go. And as Jen said, if you were to click on one of those links, you'd see everywhere that a gale warning were occurring, not just here on your map. Two more comments, I think. One is that, let's say, why don't you go back out to the main map. You can click on the home button, or there you go. And do me a favor, hide all the blue dots so they're not getting in the way. Click on the hide button in the little stations section.
Yeah, I even got lost on that. I don't think I knew that one. There we go.
There you go. That's a feature. And do me a favor, let's cut off the bathying zones and put on the sea surface temperature. And you can cut off the weather hazards as well. And once you zoom in to the Gulf of Mexico, just for fun. One thing as we march around and get more WFOs on board is everybody likes their own color maps. So right now, if you look on the bottom right of the map and you click on the sea surface temperature, that thing, right, you have a couple of options. We default to the Southeast Atlantic because, hey, we're SECOORA. But if you pick Gulf of Mexico, it should update your color ramp there. And like we were saying earlier, each WFO can link straight to their particular geographic extent as well as their own color map. So their users are seeing what they need to see. So if you change that back to the southeastern U.S., it'll probably look better for us East Coasters there. And last but not least is we designed this thing to be mobile friendly. So if Jen were on her phone, everything would kind of, well, you can actually do that, Jen. If you can shrink your browser, just make it more, pull it so that it's squished together. Just keep going. Bonk, there you go. So if you were on your phone, the interface would change slightly, but you would have most of the functionality that you would on the full site. And I think that's all I had to add there.
Oh,
yep,
I went
done,
the wrong way. Sorry about that. So, I will say I'm having a, there we go. I was going to say my internet is actually the glitchy piece here, not the Marine Weather Portal. Sorry. And so, like we said earlier, we are still looking for that offshore product for wind speed, wind data. And so if anyone on the call from the Weather Service offices or otherwise know of products, we'd like to hear from you on that so that we can investigate further.
Well, hang on. Roy Ying has a question. How does the Weather Portal complement with or differ from NOAA Now Coast? So just to be clear, if you were to click on that Maps label on the top left, I'm not going to ask you to, but you can click on any one of the layers and it'll tell you how we're getting the data and where it's coming from. But click back out of that so it's off of your screen again, Jen. Just anywhere. There you go. The radar, tropical cyclones, weather hazards, storm surge, those all come from Now Coast. The hurricane threats, those are actually, they start out as KMLs and we just grab them directly from, I'm going to say the southern region Weather Service FTP site. And the sea surface temperature, like Jen said earlier, comes from SECOORA. So how does it differ from Now Coast? I would definitely say we're a much more scaled down version of Now Coast. Our whole goal here was to keep it as simple as possible. Now Coast, as many of you may know, has a bazillion different layers. But we're trying to stick with as few as possible. So like I said earlier, during the storm season, when Now Coast was having problems, it was very obvious that we would have problems, which is an issue, but as time progressed, things got much more stable. And I'm hopeful that next hurricane season, A, won't be as active, and B, if it is, we'll be ready for it. I hope that answers your question.
And the other thing I'm going to jump in and add is that I think Now Coast does try to serve a variety of users, a large variety of users. And this site all along has been built more for the Weather Services users. So that's going to be for your coastal and offshore groups that are really looking for information they need before they go boating, before they go fishing, before they go to the beach. One of the things that we are doing is on those coastal zone hazards, not only are we pulling in rip currents, but when there's a water quality statement that is coming through, we also grab those, and those are highlighted on this site too. But we really have that very targeted group in mind as for this site, which is, as Charlton said, while we limit the amount of possible overlays, and we also limit probably to some degree some of the amount of data that Now Coast makes available, because we are just looking for the Weather Services end user base.
Jen, I've got one more comment, and that has to do with how do we pick what blue dots to put on the map. I know that we were dealing with Corpus Christi, I think, and they were after a particular Ticoon buoy. And right now our conditions are, hey, if it's going to NDBC or co-ops, it's fair game. NEARS does that, so since NEARS goes through NDBC, they show up here. But that particular Ticoon buoy, for whatever reason, is not going through NDBC. So I guess we have a couple of options. Either we try to lean on them to make that happen, and I know that's not easy because I work with data providers, and that's definitely not just a flip of a switch. But the other thing is that if there's enough stability and interest, it's possible that we can chase these things down directly. I don't want to make any promises, but I don't want people to get discouraged either if their particular dot is not on the map. And I will also say that the early iteration of the Marine Weather Portal, the ones that Jen showed you early on, the slides, those also had USGS stations. And we have chosen not to put those on this map, simply to reduce clutter.
you can put the data at the top. You can see where you see home, data, and about. If you go to the data page, you can learn about available maps, about products that are on the site, info on how to use the site. On the About page, you can learn more about what we do, who's been involved with this. Our emails are also on here, so you can reach any of us. And there's just some background info on, who all we've been working with and which offices we've covered, and who our partners are. One thing, Dwayne is currently unmuted, I think. One of the things we did bring up when we were at the Tampa office is that within SECOORA, we do have additional products that are being developed, one of which is a product called House of Beach. And we're trying to find out, mechanisms, or if this site, from the Weather Service perspective, could be useful for putting on additional water quality predictions based on other products that are being developed in SECOORA. And the House of Beach is an example of a product that's being developed in key locations. Sarasota, Florida, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina are two examples of where they're going in. They're establishing water quality standards, and then they're using modeling and rainfall data and offshore data that's available for winds to find out or determine whenever they're having water quality impact. So they are investigating using some other products that aren't necessarily weather products that could go on this site. That and those products really would those still meet that need of serving data to support life and property, I guess, which is the Weather Service's way of saying that. You want to be able to support people's decision making when it comes in those areas. So we are investigating some of those potential products, and this may end up being a good platform to be able to visualize some of those. But Dwayne, I don't know if you want to make a comment on how far down the road you are on being able to test on this platform.
Excuse me. I can't say that we're extremely far down the road right now. We are looking to have a chat next week with folks from the North Carolina Beach Management Program and the Shellfish folks to talk about some geographical expansion of the monitoring efforts. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So anyway, so that is another way that we probably do differ from NowCoast is we do have the ability to try to pull in some other products that specifically are related to beach water quality and even offshore issues such as harmful algal blooms. That's one of the things we've been trying to talk to the forecast community about is if we do have model products that are available or even texturized products that are available that can identify locations for offshore harmful algal blooms, that might even be something that we pull into this site because the fishing community would like to be aware of that or be made aware of that. So we are trying to use this site to reach those communities. So hopefully we'll see more products become available that we can link to or pull into this.
Jen, I've got one more thing I can add. If you wouldn't mind clicking on a buoy anywhere. So while you were talking, I was looking at our list of what are we shooting for the next version of the Weather Portal, assuming we don't get derailed and go off in a different direction. But as we were showing this thing around and sharing it with people, they were interested in, hey, can we extend these charts a little bit to the right with some forecast data?
Yeah.
And that's where we're headed here. So you can imagine that here we have some in situ data. I think it's 2.5 days perhaps. So maybe we can add a dotted line to the right. That would show what the forecast wind speeds were going to be for the next, 24 hours perhaps. That's something we're going to try to work on for the next go-round.
I'm trying to find a water level station as an example, and I'm not hitting one.
I think if you go on the list to the left, the stations list, you'll see it under co-ops. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or any of those.
Communities, I guess, are all co-ops. Yeah. So what Charlton's basically saying is if we decided, so for example, water level coming out of co-op, the blue line is the predicted. And the thought is, and this has been requested by several of the forecasters in Wilmington and Tampa both, have said it would be great if we could do something similar for wind speed and wave height, anything like that, where the Weather Service is providing a forecast. So imagine if this was, instead of being a water level graph, imagine this is wind speed and we're tracking actual, that then you would change color from maybe a red that shows actual to a blue that's now your forecasted winds over the next 24 hours at this location. So that's another thing we've heard some feedback from folks who would like to see that show up in a graphical format. So I don't know if the folks on the phone have any comments on that, or if you think that would be a good function to add to these graphs. Y'all are a quiet group today.
Hey, Jennifer, so we do have a question from Ruing who said, do you have web stats, for example, Google Analytics, to show the number of hits and who are those who are the Marine Weather Portal users?
The short answer to that is yes, but it'll cost you to see them. No, we have all those things. We track them by, okay, first of all, we did have a feedback form that was not so heavily used, where we tried to say, hey, what kind of user are you and where are you coming from? What do you want to see? But that didn't seem to get much interest. So instead, yes, the Google is watching you, and we know what buoys you've clicked on and what layers you clicked on. And in particular, if the Weather Service has embedded our site in their site, we know if you come from there.
And right now, I think the Weather Service offices that have embedded this into their site, Charlton, help me out here, I think it's Wilmington, Corpus Christi, Tampa. I'm not certain who else is now linking into this one.
I would be making up names if I could.
Yeah, I can't remember who else currently is linking to this. And I know we have one group that's still linking out to the old Marine Weather Portal that we need to work with to switch them to this one.
And then another question from Ruing, is Axiom involved in this development effort?
No, this is totally, this is a historic group. We've been around forever. This really began actually when Charlton was at the University of South Carolina, working with Dwayne there, was within that data management team. And then Charlton came out and has his own consulting company, and he's been involved in sort of the private sector side, and Dwayne and I are still involved from the outreach perspective, and Dwayne from the co-ops perspective too, just so that we can make sure this product stays fresh and stays fabulous. How's that? But no, this is not an Axiom platform.
Well, since Axiom is a data manager for SECOORA, and SECOORA provides
yes, you're right, Charlton.
sea surface temperature, they are involved in that capacity.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any further questions? You're right, Jennifer, this is a quiet group.
They're just blown away by the sheer brilliance. It's all right. Jen, do you want to comment on how the Weather Service shares this with their user groups? All of a sudden, we're not actually on the front lines anymore directly interfacing with clients or potential customers.
So I know, Steve, this is not recent. This was originally when we were first developing this. Steve actually worked with his Marine Advisory Committee to get us feedback on this product. And in Morehead City, they have a Marine Advisory Committee there. And, that's a group that we are, asking them to review this with that group. Daniel Noah down in Tampa was recently going to an event, and he was highlighting this site at his event. I think that was a boating show or a marine show, or I think it was in Tampa that he went to. And so a lot of the folks at the WFOs are sort of doing the talking for this. And by no means did we ask them to do that, as much as they've liked the product, so they want to show it off. and make certain that they get feedback on it before their office starts linking to it. And so far we've had really good results and feedback from them on the site. So that's how we typically have been doing this. We reach out to the Weather Service offices. We kind of are going back to those ones that we originally approached in that 2007 to 2010 time period, which is Corpus Christi and Brownsville, Tampa, Key West. Chip Kennard down there he gave us a lot of great feedback, as well as the folks in North Carolina and South Carolina. And I realize the North and South Carolina folks are just easy for us because they're in our backyard. And we are now trying to figure out how do we reach out to some of the other Gulf offices. One, we'd like to get feedback from them on well-known marine locations and find out if we can add those. A lot of the Weather Service offices have a list of well-known marine locations that they could provide. So that's one area we'd like feedback from them on, so we can make sure we're including those. But we'd also just like to find out if they like the site or if they're interested in the site. By no means are we asking everyone to use this site for their WFO's website. But if you do want to, it's available, and we can help you link to it. Charlton, that's the Royal We. Charlton can help you link to it. So we're working. I guess we're sort of getting feedback from the Weather Service offices on what to include and changes to make, as opposed to us going directly to the end user. I hope that answered that question. I kind of went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Well, while you were talking, Mark Luther sent us an email kindly saying, hey, you forgot about Tampa Bay. He's pointed me to, I don't know, half a dozen dots that we need to add to the map. So,
oh, good.
The force is strong with these folks. Let's see what we can do.
And then we had another question come in from Ruing He. He's asking, could the Marine Weather Portal be used to show the subsurface ocean conditions, say vertical transect of T/S? Charlton, I think you could answer that.
I am not going to pretend to interpret what a T/S is. There
Temperature
you go.
This
is getting kind of creepy. Temperature and salinity. Let's see. I guess the short answer is maybe. I know from working on other applications, anytime you introduce depth, things get really tricky. Just for fun, are we talking about the seafloor, or would you want to be able to pick anywhere in the water column? If it's seafloor, I guess that would be easier. Okay, he wants it all, the whole water column. The answer is maybe. Now, I guess that's another thing, is that, first of all, this code is for the public to consume, and there's no reason that a hotshot developer couldn't take this code and make it or apply this kind of fancy-dancy vertical transect tool, or add the tool to the Marine Weather Portal. I think the question then becomes, hey, is this something that will get in the way of our marine community, or be something that's value added? And that's not a decision I can make. But yeah, I'm going to stop with maybe. I hope that's okay.
I think, and just to chime in, I think the one thing that we would do before making that kind of step is make sure that it's something that the Weather Service office thought it would be valuable, that there was a value add there. And my gut is that sometimes the fishing community would think it would be great if they could figure out the temperature break. So, that might be an area that the Weather Service office would think that it would be a useful either data layer that you can toggle on or off. But the other side or other piece of that is it really has to be something that's very easy to use, very easy to understand by the layperson community. And so we may have, I don't want to say that's a challenge. It might or might not be a challenge to get it to that product to that level. So it'd be something we'd have to consider if we move forward.
So Roy Ing went on to say something about glider observations, which reminds me that another user somewhere along the way, I believe is the acronym VOS, isn't that where volunteers somethings are pushing their boat GPS positions so that they can appear on the map?
Program?
Yeah, that's it. Somebody asked if that could be added to the map. And I think we gave them the same dodgy answer, maybe. I'm not sure how that would fit in.
I think
to
yeah, I think the biggest issue there on the Volunteer Observer Program is sometimes data latency. You don't always have a timestamp with those data, so you don't exactly know how good they are. And the other piece, I guess it comes down to sometimes some data, even if it's of questionable quality, is better than no data. I think people do go with that argument sometimes. But that could really make a clutter on a map very quickly. And I remember having this discussion, I think it was several years ago, and I don't exactly remember why we decided not to do it, but I remember we decided not to. But memory fails me on why it was decided.
I wish I knew. I don't know.
But it's something we could easily revisit.
I guess a way, and I'll put you on the spot, Jen, because I don't know the answer to this, to wrap things up-ish, would be to tell where we are in kind of the development phase. Are we in a position where we're going to stick with what we've got for a while and let it grow on people, or are we in kind of an active, hey, let's add a few more whiz-bang things to this thing? I probably should know the answer to that, but...
Yeah, no, we're always happy to add whiz-bang. I think right now what we're doing is we did an original, we revised the map, you revised where you're harvesting data from, and we got the portal basically to the point that you're seeing it right now. We went to the Tampa office and got great feedback from them, not only marine locations, but also about that hurricane threats and storm surge products that they strongly felt needed to be on here. And so we added that immediately. So I think that as we are taking this out and we're trying to garner feedback, we're happy to pull in other products that you feel meet that stakeholder need.
With the exception of the dotted line that we were just talking about, being able to put forecasts at a buoy.
Oh, yes, that's one that is in the works, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask Abby a question then. So is the purpose of this kind of discussion, or this particular discussion, to show, hey, this is what we've done for the marine weather community, the marine community? Are folks listening to this call supposed to think, well, hey, how can I use this to my own advantage, or is this just like I said earlier, it's kind of a show and tell of what we're doing?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to chime in here. I'm an educator here with Sea Grant in South Carolina, and I've chimed in on this call. It's very exciting, but I'm looking at it as another tool to share with some of the teachers that are interested in real-time data and technology. And so I'm actually presenting at a conference coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'd love to share, if you guys think that's appropriate, I'd love to share this site with them just to show how it pulls in all this great information from all these other sites and really just see their feedback on how they might use it with their students. So that's just another angle. I know that's not the purpose of it, but it's very exciting to have this type of information.
No, we think that's a great purpose too. Can I get your name? I'm sorry. I'm not
Sure. This is Evie Bell. I'm the Marine Education Specialist with Sea Grant.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was a little bit late chiming on. So, no, it was. I found out about this very late, so I was able to sign up, thankfully. So, it's very interesting because a lot of the science standards that teachers have to teach not only address weather but also technology, and so I think teachers are hungry for this type of information. And I think it can be, some sites have a lot of great data and opportunities, but it can be daunting for teachers to navigate through some of these sites, even though there's a lot of great data. But what you all have done, it looks to me, and I'm not an expert in any of this, but it looks very inviting, and it looks like it's something that they can play around with and poke around with and find if they want to, stay tuned to a certain buoy or look at hurricane tracks and all this. I feel like it's very user-friendly.
That's great, and we would be happy to get feedback if you hear any additional feedback from them as well. But we are more than happy for you to take this and use it at your meeting and provide it as a resource. And you're welcome also to provide Charlton and I's contact details.
Okay, thank you.
Page, you can pull it off. But, yeah, we are happy for you to do that, and you can give them our names and info, too.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for all the hard work on this, and it really looks like a great resource to have for many different audiences.
Great. Thank you, Evie. All right. Are there any more questions? We got about 7 minutes left. All right. And if we didn't get to your questions, you can go ahead and email the presenters directly. I've included their email addresses in the chat box. And Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and take over.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? I'm so sorry. I just thought about this. This is Evie again. Do you all have any plans for including some sort of tutorial, or basically like what you did with this presentation, just kind of walking people through so that if there's a kind of a how-to resource on the site?
Evie, this is Charlton. Are you nominating yourself to be the voice behind this thing? Because you have a very nice voice. That was actually something someone requested along the way. It was, hey, can you put together a short video describing how you use this thing?
Yeah. And I know it's more complicated than it sounds, but it's just such a great resource. And I was thinking if that might be, if somebody gets to the site and is not exactly sure where to begin, it might be that might be a nice resource to have. And your presentation really captures that, really.
Well, I think you have. We're going to bubble that up to the top of things to do in the near future. So,
okay.
If you're willing to actually nominate yourself as someone to give it a first pass, if we put something together to say, hey,
sure,
this makes 0 sense, or don't forget about this, that would be great.
Absolutely. I am not an expert in technology, so I'll be glad to let you know if it doesn't make sense.
You're perfect. You're overqualified.
I'll be the lowest common denominator.
Right.
If we could give you the script also to be the voice of it, I agree with Charlton. You have a great voice for that. That would be fabulous.
Oh, well, you're very kind. You're very kind. But no, I'd be happy to help be a sounding board if you guys need.
Super.
Great. All right. One more time. Any more questions? All right. So as I stated earlier, you can find a recording of the webinar on the website listed right there, and also a PDF of the presentation. The next webinar is November 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern, and the speaker will be announced shortly. And I want to thank you all for joining us, and Jennifer and Charlton for presenting on the Marine Weather Portal and helping us celebrate our 10-year anniversary.
Well, thank you, Abby.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.